Shalom. Good Erev Shabbat from here in Eretz Israel. I'm Avraham Shira. We're looking at something that is quite profound and deep in the mysteries of the Zohar and Parshat Yitro, this week's Parsha. The Rav, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and his son are discussing all the different body parts of a human being and what they teach us and how this wisdom was given over to Moses by the Shekhinah, and Shlomo HaMelech received it from tradition. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, of course, learned with Eliyahu Navi twice a day while he was in the cave. So, these are good traditions. Now, you might not accept them, but don't accept them. Listen and see what you think. Experiment, experience. 30 years ago, I showed up at the Yeshiva Mekubalim in Yerushalayim, Nar Shalom, and I asked them, why don't we learn the book of the Chochmat Partzuf, the wisdom of the face, and Chochmat Hayad, the wisdom of the hand, and the forehead, and the phrenology, and the body itself. Why don't we learn all those things? Because they're all contained within the Kabbalah. And the answer I was given, because these teachings can destroy our innocence. When you learn some of the deep secrets of the Kabbalah, you might not look at the world the same way anymore. And you might lose some of that pure innocence, the innocence of a child who looks at the world with love and acceptance. And when we look at the world trying to examine and analyze everybody else around us, well, that can be very misleading. So this wisdom is not necessarily for everyone, and we're not going to learn all the details here today, but we're going to learn some of the basics about it, okay? And some of the basics are enough to understand the awesome way that God has put our body and soul together and how one teaches the other. We're going to learn about looking at ourselves in a different way as well. And we can look at our bodies and we can understand more of the unbelievable unity and integration of mind and body, soul and materiality that God has used to create this world. Now, why is all this wisdom becoming available now in this later date of creation? According to the Jewish tradition, it's a late date, right? 5782. We only have 218 years till 6,000. Is that correct? Something like that. Yeah. Now, so why is all this wisdom coming available now, and it was only taught to a few 2,000-3,000 years ago? Well, it's because people have changed. People are more educated. We might know less about certain things than the ancients did, but a lot of people know a lot of things from a lot of traditions, and there's been what's called Hitpashtut Hadat. Hitpashtut Hadat means the Das of God, which was given over to Moses at Mount Sinai, has now spread throughout the generations, across the globe, through Jews and non-Jews alike, through all different ways, through pure forms and less pure forms. But the knowledge of the awareness of God is covering the sea. It is covering our consciousness, if we want it. It's available in so many languages and so many applications. Every time I look at a science book, I learn about Kabbalah. Every time I look at Kabbalah, I learn about science. And you see, so the integration of the sciences is part of the return to the unity of creation. And that's an important sentence. The integration of sciences returns the mind to the primordial unity that we had before the sin. So we are here, Erev Shabbat, in Eretz Israel, thank God. And what we're going to learn about is that a person's body, their mind, and their face are working very, very closely together, so quickly that you can't see when a thought appears on a person's face. And also their body, when their heart changes, when their moods change, when their emotions shift, their bodies shift. Now, we don't usually catch that either because, it's very quick and it's subtle. But once we learn to notice our own bodies, then we can start to read our inner world from our outer world. Now, normally we learn about ourselves by thinking and contemplating and meditating on our inner experience of reality. But there is a way to also experience our inner reality through our outer reality. And this is what the Zohar is going to teach us today. For example, we have the ears, we have the eyes, we have the nose, we have the mouth, we have the forehead. These 5 components of the head are teaching about different traits. For example, the nose is Vayirichu V'yirat Hashem. The verse says that Mashiach will breathe the scent of awe. In other words, you smell a flower, you smell a rose, right? You smell a piece of fruit. Well, there's also a thing called smelling awe. And he'll have that power. And so did Moses, and so did King Solomon. So the awe is connected to the nose. Now, the opposite of awe is usually anger. And that's why you see, even in old-time cartoons, when the cartoon character gets angry, his nose turns red. Because red, of course, is the color of anger. Now, when we go to the ears, of course, the ears are the ability to hear. But in spirituality, the shape of a person's ears has to do with his refinement of perception. And that people with very large ears, the Zohar tells us, are not the same as people with small ears. And it goes on to get more specific about a person's ability to be serious or foolish. And with the forehead, we're even told that the lines in your forehead represent different reincarnations. And when you have a complete straight line, that means you made it all the way through. You finished the race. You got out alive. Well, you're always alive, whether you're in this body or another one. But when there's broken lines in your forehead, that's a teaching that things happen along the way that need to be fixed. And of course, the mouth is the production of speech, and the lips are actually parallel to the 2 legs, right? And so when a person has a large mouth, that means he has a powerful ability to channel kingship. Okay? Kingship. The ability to receive and to give. A king must receive from his kingdom, and then he has to give back to the kingdom. Now, politicians, they got the receiving down pretty good, right? They're the aspect of kings, presidents, prime ministers, whatever label you give them. And you have to know how to receive with respect and dignity and kindness, but to give, of course, is part of the equation. And so the ability to speak is both a two-way street, and that's represented by the lips. And you'll see that a lot of people who have large mouths also have a certain demeanor that corresponds to kingship. And of course, the eyes are the windows of the soul. It's not just a poetic cliche, my friends. Rabbi Nachman says in the Kuti Moran that your eyes are actually beaming soul power from your inner mind, your soul, out into the world, and it's taking pictures of reality and bringing it back. In other words, sight is not pure light. Sight is soul, because soul is the glue of creation. Repeat that. Sight is not light. It is the glue in the power to see. And so what happens is when you open your eyes, your soul projects out in a beam. It strikes an object, it records it, and I call it glue because it's a little colloquial, but it works. And then that comes back and goes back into your mind. Now, he says very interesting things over there. We'll have to learn that Torah out. It's, I believe, Torah 97. It teaches you that things are moving in the spiritual world much faster than they are here. And that's why we can't see directly into the spiritual. But if we train ourselves through meditation and prayer and purify our minds, then we all of a sudden start to be able to penetrate the veil of the speed of that hyperlight reality. And so the eyes are actually little soul collectors. And not only are they reading information coming into reality, but they're also projecting your information out of your head. So anybody who's sensitive can look at your eyes and know exactly what's going on, where you're holding at any time. Now, of course, this wisdom is not so that we can gain power. This is the big problem in Kabbalah. When we learn these things and we see that they're true and they work, and all of a sudden you get like, wow, that experience. The next thought is not, how can I use this to become more powerful over others? That's what we call Esav, the Klipa, the negative forces. That's all the way going downtown where you don't want to go. Okay? But understand that when we can see the wisdom and the beauty and the awe of God in his creation, then, I can let him run the world. And I can receive information as he sends it to me through my ears, through my eyes, through my nose, through awe and vision and reception and kingship. But I don't have to try to seek power over others, because that's exactly where humanity falls apart. Because we don't need to seek power, because God is already the power, folks. We need to tap into his control of reality, and then we become an instrument for good. Okay, so understand also there's some other little, well, let's call them tips, if you will. Tipim, they call it in Hebrew. When any part of your body is extraordinarily large, any part, you have big eyes or big ears or big, whatever it is, that's a sign that you have extra nephesh, soul power in that particular location. Whatever it might be. And it could be a large head, it could be large feet, whatever it is, that's extra nephesh. And so when you understand the map of Kabbalah and the map of the tree of life, then you understand the traits that are woven into those places in the body. So we have to know the map to drive, to not get lost on the highway. So, we have to first learn the map of the tree of life, learn those traits, understand that they are active forces and principles within us, acting all the time, unconsciously, we don't know it, but it's happening. And then when you know them, then you can look at yourself and say, wow, I have large hands. What does that mean? Oh, my nose is big. I must be Jewish, I don't even know if that, it's a funny cliche about Jews, but it makes sense if we're the people of the book, the people of God, of Abraham, that we should have extra awe, because we were, as a collective soul, at Mount Sinai. We saw those miracles, and you can catch that on YouTube about Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia. It's a very interesting video. I suggest you check it out, because it looks a lot more real than the Christian version of Mount Sinai down in below Eilat. Anyways, interesting stuff. The point is, though, is that when we are able to identify our own traits, then all of a sudden we have this more intimate connection with Hashem. And this intimate connection teaches me a little bit of humility, teaches me a little bit of, wow, if he's shaping me with these powers, then maybe I need to channel these powers in a certain way. If a guy's got big hands, he's going to be a good masseuse, and he's not going to be a very good brain surgeon, probably, if you know what I mean. And so these are one of the things. Now, another aspect that will help us understand this Kabbalah of the body, I like to call it Kabbalistic body language. Another feature is balance. The balance of parts is the secret of aesthetics. And aesthetics are something, tam vareach en litvakeach, we say in Hebrew, that the taste, which really means the reason behind a thing, and the smell of a thing, there's nothing to argue about. If you like apples and I like oranges, there's no reason to argue. So there are certain intimate experiences in life that don't bear comparison to anybody else. Okay? Now those experiences are happening to us, whether we know it or not. And we're judging. As the old cliche, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Well, it's because it's not absolute truth, because there is an aesthetic norm. And the aesthetic norm in the Torah, in the Kabbalah, the way we are built, is balance. That a person who has balance, his torso and his legs and his head all fit together nicely, and no part stands out exceptionally or exaggerated in an exaggerated way, then that sign of balance is actually a gateway to beauty. And beauty is the heart, beauty is Tiferet and the tree of life. And that beauty is because when you see balance with your eye, you perceive it gives you balance. When you see beauty, you feel beauty. You wonder why all the movie makers are looking for all the beautiful actors and actresses? Because of the impact their beauty has on others. People necessarily, listen, will believe handsome or beautiful people before they will not handsome or not beautiful people. Why is that? Why should that be true? That sounds prejudice. Oh, he's not handsome. I won't believe in him. Oh, she's beautiful. I'll believe in her. That sounds ridiculous, right? Doesn't sound PC either. Whatever that is. So, but why is it that way? Well, because, see, Hashem is the ultimate balance. And he creates ultimate balance between air and water and earth and fire. He creates balance between the spiritual and the physical. Too much spirituality, the physicality gets blown away. Too much physicality, the spirituality runs away. So we also need balance between our physical and spiritual lives. How much you work out and how much you read, how much you meditate and how much you talk. All these things need balance, and that creates beauty of form, beauty of expression. And your own being starts to emanate that balance. And that's the divine, what I call the cosmic aesthetic, because it's translating power from the source into us, the receivers. It translates it smoothly. Now, when you see somebody that's not so balanced, features on his face or his body, whatever it might be, you start to wonder, what's going on? Why is this guy bent over? Why is this guy's arm not working right? Why is this guy, it sounds very cruel, really, to judge people that way. But the Torah does not ask us to not be human. The Torah asks us to elevate our humanity. Okay? That means if I see somebody with a big scar down his cheek, I gotta wonder how it got there. Maybe he's got a bigger knife in his back pocket. That's not really prejudice. That's just kind of cautious. Right? Now, if I judge somebody because of his skin color, well, maybe that's not quite what God wants from us. But if I see someone who has a big nose, I say, wow, that person, he must have some awe, some kind of sense of awe. And so too with all the traits and all the parts of us ourselves, that when we have a person has that aesthetic, it's called grace in Hebrew, chen. And chen, Rabbi Nachman explains to us, is life force translated to kingship. Life force starts up in the mind, comes down into the heart, it spreads through the body, and comes out through the mouth, the hands, and the feet, and the eyes. And so that life force that's coming out of us, there's a grace to it. Do you ever notice, I don't know, sometimes I go on YouTube and watch these singers from the 50s. They look so smooth. It's so different than the singers and the screamers that we have today. But you look at some of those old, they had this kind of grace. Now, of course, America in the 50s had a different culture. And it was a different time, and I'm not going to compare or judge generations, because everybody's got their test, and every generation is different for a reason. Because the generations are on a developmental redemption. Okay, remember that phrase. Developmental redemption. Redemption, redeeming something means taking it out of captivity and freeing it. That's all it means. And all of creation is redeeming the human being from his own trap, his own cell, his own consciousness and his body. So we are in a redemptive process of revelation, and that brings on redemption. And so I think, when we understand our inner life, we're going to be better off. And when we understand our outer structure, it's going to help us understand the inner even better. Now, this takes time. It takes meditation. It takes contemplation. You have to read some books. There's so many great books by Rabbi Kaplan in Kabbalah in English, and I know it's been translated into Spanish and Russian and French. There's no reason why we can't have access to the most illuminating teachings of history, which is the Zohar of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And all of this takes us to Shabbat, because Shabbat is the balance of the week. It's where we've worked, and now we're ready to rest. But it's not a passive rest, actually. Shabbat is the time where we look at our lives, we look at our week, we look at our families, we come to wholeness with who we are and what we're doing. And even if you don't feel whole, even if you are missing things, there is a hidden wholeness there. If you're looking for a wife, if you're looking for a husband, you want to have kids and you don't, okay, those feel like those are really hurt when you're lacking those important things in life. But I can still be whole in my now, because all I have is now. And tomorrow, if you meet the right person, then your wholeness, your expansion will expand to include a new person in your life. And so our balance is always adjusting to reality around us. And, we should be blessed with that inner sense. It's not about the high, folks, and it's not about the low. It's about the perfect center. And the perfect center will create a channel of grace and beauty in the world. And we shall be blessed with that on Holy Shabbos Kodesh, because Shabbos is the time to do it. And it's a time where we can turn everything off and turn on our inner light. And God bless you all. We'll see you next week on all the platforms. We'll continue our daily class from Rabbi Nachman on Patreon. And hopefully, that this little Shira will begin to open our eyes to the amazing wonders of how God has made us. Shabbat Shalom.